with the LA riots, they were all kind of just going back and forth being like, oh, riot season, of course. You see it. It's a Monday afternoon. The paid protesters are coming out. They need their paychecks as well. But take us a little bit through what you've seen from that. And just it's almost like it's the left's playbook at this point in time. And do you think this is an isolated incident, or do you think that this is a sign of things to come?
Well, I think it's a sign of things to come, with one exception. President Trump has been through this before, and now all of a sudden what he's saying is, you're not going to take over our cities and our states. He is engaging. I can tell you, I was with him in the White House back in the 2020 summer of 2020 when we saw all
Summer of Love.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Summer of Love, but that's what they tried to portray it as. But the inaction, and a lot of that happened because of governors and mayors and people, whether it was in Washington State or Minnesota or Wisconsin, they wanted to do the pushback. And the president, honestly, he's not having it this time because he's seen what his gut reaction was then, and he's going to follow that instinct now. So it will spread, but not. It will not be systemic. And I think what his actions that are taken are not only justified but welcomed by most Americans.
I'm glad that Patrick Buchanan was able to still be here to see somebody finally send in the Marines when Los Angeles gets lit on fire. He knew what to do in 1992, and people didn't listen. And now it's over. It's done. But I feel like a lot of that might be also because the LA riots in 1992 were grassroots. There was rage.
Well,
and
these are orchestrated.
Yeah.
You know, they're orchestrated not only on social media, but there's all kinds of incentives. I can tell you there was a protester, whether this is true or not, but there was a protester outside the Supreme Court, literally 1 block from where we're recording this right now. And that protester, somebody said, you know, they were just loud and obnoxious. And they said, hey, listen, we'll give you $100 if you just go away during this presser. And the protester responded, I'm getting paid more than that. Yeah, so a true capitalist as a leftist protester. But, you know, you wonder if those things are true, but we can say these are not organic. They're not grassroots, as you were talking about, but they are designed to send a message. And that message is all about trying to make sure that the ICE agents and those that are doing their job become fearful. But I'm telling you, the men and women who serve in ICE and Border Patrol, they're having none of it. They've got a president who has their back. They have the president's back, and the American people will see the difference.
Well, it's laughable because Karen Bass, she was coming out and saying, oh, well, if it wasn't for all these ICE agents coming around trying to do the deportations, we wouldn't have riots. But you look, and elections have consequences. This is what the American people voted for. This was one of the very central issues of the Trump campaign. And now they're going out and trying to execute the plan that the American people voted for.
And what's happening to President Trump's poll numbers among those that have come here as immigrants is going way up, but not just for those who say, I want to secure the border. It's the people who have come here legally and said, listen, we need to control the border. And that's been the surprising thing, I think, to the left. They're starting to say, how in the world are his numbers going up? But while they're looking for a constituency, President Trump is looking out for his constituency. And there's the difference. They're trying to find a group of people that will vote for them. And so whether it's Mayor Bass or any of the others, it is really troubling to see how, listen, over half of Congress voted against a resolution condemning what happened in Colorado just yesterday. I mean, can you imagine that? Why? Because it had ICE in there and it talked about sanctuary cities, and they couldn't stand up against that.
No, Matt, we were just talking about this a second ago, how the Democrats have really tried to typecast different groups into one homogenous thing, whether it's immigrants and illegal immigrants. That's all one voting block. They don't realize that illegal immigrants come and they commit crimes in communities where a lot of legal immigrants actually live, and they don't actually like that. Or they assumed that Hispanic workers and immigrants would rise during Black Lives Matter, but those were two distinct groups with distinct missions, distinct goals, and communities that don't always, sometimes there's friction amongst the working classes. And now they're looking at this riot, and you're seeing mostly college students. You're not seeing workers really rise up. You're not seeing the same people who are out rioting during Black Lives Matter or protesting during Black Lives Matter. Their reads on everyone seems to be incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing we were talking about is that the tipping point has to be where you get enough, impoverished people who are living in these areas to go out and loot and riot and whatever and feel like it's okay. And the irony is, I mean, how many people who are actually here illegally want to go out and stick their neck out? I mean, they're hiding, they're scared of being, deported, and they should be. But this orchestrated effort is a problem, and I'm curious. There is a difference, as you were talking about, in the environment over the course of time from the first administration to now. I think a lot of people in the audience want to see actual action against those who organize this, and it's interesting to me how we weren't even allowed to talk about that for some reason. You couldn't say Antifa should be an international terrorist group without people saying Antifa doesn't even exist.
Right.
So now, do you think that we're at the point where this administration is actually going to really hold these people accountable?
Well, I think they're going to hold them accountable. Kash Patel, Director Patel at the FBI will certainly be all hands on deck in terms of this particular issue, and really get support not only in the Oval Office but at DOJ. That hasn't been the case even under the previous Trump administration. We know that the pushback was internal. It was this silent kind of, we're not going to raise the issue. But to your point, you said Mayor Bass said, well, if you just didn't do this, this wouldn't happen. Well, we know that that's not the case because they don't prosecute for shoplifting. And what have they seen? Exponential shoplifting that goes on. So here's what I do believe is your viewers do want to see a day of reckoning, but it's not just a day of reckoning on the streets of Los Angeles or whatever city that we happen to be deploying assets to. They want to see it at the highest levels of the coordinating activity that is there. And until we get to that, this chaos, this paid chaos that's going on, it's going to be repeated.
Well, I want to get into more of Trump in his second term, because I think the last time that we saw you in person was actually on Inauguration Day when we were doing our show here. So let's go and just give us a breakdown of what you've seen from Trump in this administration since we last saw you in person on January 20th.
It's breathtaking. It's such an encouragement to me. I talked to the president over the weekend just about some of the successes that we've seen. But whether you take it from foreign policy or the border or the economic ability of America First policies actually being instituted, what he's doing in terms of making our city safer, you see it across the board, but I don't know how he has the bandwidth to get it all done. Having served with him, I know he never sleeps. And so you guys know that. All three of you know that he never sleeps. But here's the interesting thing is, even with him not sleeping right now, he is deploying one task after another, to the point where even reporting on it, it is very difficult to keep up. It's something new today, tomorrow. He was in Fort Bragg yesterday. He's going all over. But I would give him not only an A+, but the reason why his poll numbers are going through the roof is that the American people are saying, finally, somebody is doing what they said they would do. Because listen, it's a systemic problem with both Democrats and Republican members of Congress, where they campaign like they're going to do something and they never do it. And yet this president he's not letting his cabinet do that. Susie Wiles, his chief, is doing an outstanding job. For me, it's what we had hoped was going to happen in 2021. We had to wait 4 years of Biden progressive left awful policy, but it shows a very, very sharp contrast.
I was very interested in your take on this, thinking about this from a chief of staff perspective. Right. And I sort of imagine, looking at this now, you're thinking this is what we wanted to do, which is
right.
what you just said.
We were prepared to do in the end
yes.
of 2020.
But say a little bit more about the difference, because it seems like from what you were saying earlier, I mean, the question was the internal division was that was there before is not there now. Is that?
No,
as simple as it?
listen, you're going to always, you've
Yeah.
got great big personalities. You're
Right.
always going to have some strife that's going on and different agendas. But here's what he's got his entire cabinet saying is what he used to say on each and every day. What's next? What's the next thing we need to tackle on behalf of the American people? What's the next thing we need to do well? He wants us to be tired of winning. I'm not there yet, but let me just tell you, we're well on our way to be tired of winning, and it's going to make big shoes for the next Republican nominee that comes after him. I can tell you, I've watched him in the budget debates in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, actually going back and forth with these members of Congress and now senators. He's personally engaged and not just twisting arms, but he is negotiating. The mogul that he was is now a political mogul that's producing real results for the American people.
And you didn't see that with previous Republican presidents. You didn't really see that with Democratic presidents either, that personal involvement. Now, from the outside, people trying to keep up with the latest news and around reconciliation. Originally, the question was, well, salt caps dominated a lot of headlines, but you're always worried about different aspects of it. What are some of the stumbling blocks that you see coming out next? What should people actually have their eye on for these negotiations, for where it's going to get, where sticking points for senators that could become sticking points for the House of Representatives, that could end up being sticking points for the administration's agenda?
Well, you're covering this, right now. You're up close and personal to it here in the nation's capital. But probably the two biggest stumbling blocks that I see on whether the big beautiful bill gets done is if Leader Thune continues down the path where he's going right now. He's been committed to real cuts, which has been refreshing. I didn't see that under Leader McConnell too often. But the biggest concern I have right now is there are a few senators that are wanting to make the bill better. As a former House member, I've never seen the Senate make anything better. But I'm open to it. And so those senators are actually making very constructive recommendations to the White House and to Leader Thune. That's going to come to conflict within the next 48 hours with the committees, where the committees are going to try to water some things down, and that's going to be the big rub. Now, there's also a danger that they go too far, and then it comes back to the House, and the moderates in the House say, golly, I can't make that happen. And so it's on a razor's edge. Do I believe it gets done by July 4th? Yes. Leader Thune did a wonderful thing today by saying that they're going to have to stay in if they don't pass it by July 4th, which means it'll pass by July 4th.
It's a good tactic.
There's no way they're missing going home. So they'll be on. The jet fumes are already starting to leak out from Reagan.
They want to get on that road.
Yeah, that's right.
It seems like some of those people are trying to make it better,
They are.
pushing ideas.
Yeah.
Like maybe we should return to pre-COVID funding, which are reasonable in every place in the world except for D.C.
Right.
And people seem surprised watching from the outside that these Republicans, some of these senators, some of these committees don't seem to want to do that. But it seems like if they'd ever wanted to do that, they would have fought for it over the last 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, they
what's
should have
changed?
fought for it. Oh, well, listen, Senator Johnson that you're talking about, pre-COVID levels, and those that have aligned with him philosophically there, understand that Washington, D.C. is addicted. They're addicted to spending. There's two kinds of people that are addicted, Democrats and Republicans. And so there are a few conservatives that are willing to push back. Senator Johnson and I have had multiple conversations over the last 72 hours about how do we continue that effort? How do we continue that Doge effort? How do we actually cut back? Because there are a group of 6 to 7 senators who want to spend more money. And that's what this whole pushback is all about. At the end, I think we do end up cutting spending.